The bread sitting in your kitchen right now might not actually be bread. It looks like bread, it smells like bread, but what you are eating every single morning could be one of the most ultra-processed products in your entire home. We investigated 10 types of loaves sold across every major UK supermarket. What we found were dough conditioners, hidden sugars, artificial colouring, and ingredient lists so long they read like chemistry exams. Products engineered for profit and shelf life, not for your health. These are the 10 fake breads you should never eat. And number 1 is in almost every British household. Number 10, budget white sandwich bread. The loaf millions of families grab without a second thought because it costs less than £1. But that rock bottom price comes with a hidden cost your body ends up paying. Budget white sandwich bread is built on refined wheat flour. That means the bran and germ have been stripped away, leaving behind a starchy powder with almost no nutritional value. What you get is a fast-digesting carbohydrate that spikes your blood sugar, like a sweet, not a staple. The glycemic index of white bread often rivals that of pure glucose. Think about that for a moment. You might as well be spooning sugar directly into your mouth. But the problems do not stop at the flour. To keep these loaves soft and squeezable for days on end, manufacturers load them with emulsifiers, like E471 and E472E. These additives force the bread to hold a texture that no traditional loaf would ever maintain naturally. Then comes calcium propionate, a preservative designed to stop mold, useful for shelf life, less useful for your gut. Some research has linked this preservative to irritability and restlessness in children, though manufacturers insist the levels used are safe. The truth is, budget bread is not designed to feed you. It is designed to survive. Survive the factory, survive the lorry, survive the warehouse, survive your cupboard. And when food is engineered for endurance instead of nourishment, you have to ask what it is doing once it reaches your stomach. This is the quiet trade-off that no price tag reveals. You save a few pence at the till and pay with your digestion later. And if you think price separates fake bread from real bread, the next loaf proves how wrong that assumption is. Number 9, ultra-soft toasty bread. The loaf that promises pillowy slices and perfect toasties, soft enough to squeeze, light enough to tear, engineered to feel like a cloud in your hands. But that signature softness is not the result of careful baking. It is the result of chemistry. Traditional bread gets its texture from time. Long fermentation allows gluten to develop naturally, creating structure and chew, but time is expensive, so manufacturers replaced it with the Chorleywood bread process, a high-speed method developed in Britain in 1962. This system uses intense mechanical energy and a cocktail of additives to produce a tight loaf in under 3 hours. No slow rise, no natural development, just rapid mixing, chemical assistance and maximum output. It revolutionised British baking, but not in ways that benefit your health. In fact, it prioritised factory efficiency over everything else. Emulsifiers like E471 and E472E do the heavy lifting. They trap air inside the dough, creating the artificially soft crumb people have been trained to expect. Flour treatment agents manipulate the gluten so it stretches further and holds its shape despite the rushed process. Enzymes, often hidden under the label processing aids, modify the dough in ways that do not even have to be declared on the packet. You could be eating ingredients that never appear on the label. This bread is not soft because it is fresh. It is soft because it has been designed to trick your senses into thinking it is fresh. A real loaf made with flour, water, salt and yeast would never feel like this. It would have crust, resistance and character. What you are buying is a textural illusion, a product that feels premium but is built on shortcuts and additives your grandmother would not recognise. And with the next loaf, the deception is no longer hidden in texture. It is right there in the colour. Number 8, wholemeal bread with added colouring. It looks healthy, rich brown colour, rustic appearance. The kind of loaf you grab when you are trying to make a better choice for your family. But here is the uncomfortable truth. That brown colour might have nothing to do with whole grains at all. Some breads marketed as wholemeal or brown are actually made with refined white flour that has been coloured to look more nutritious. Caramel colouring, listed as E150, is one of the most common tricks. A few drops and suddenly a pale, stripped-down loaf looks like it came from a heritage bakery. Malt extract is another favourite, adding colour and a hint of sweetness while contributing almost nothing nutritionally. These are old tricks that manufacturers have been using for decades, without most consumers ever catching on. This deception exploits a simple assumption: darker bread equals healthier bread. And for decades, that rule held true. Genuine wholemeal flour contains the entire grain, including the bran and germ, which give it that naturally darker tone, along with fibre, vitamins and minerals. But when manufacturers use refined flour and add colouring, you get the appearance without the benefit. You get the illusion of nutrition without the actual nutrients. Check the ingredients carefully. If wholemeal flour is not the first item on the list, you are likely eating a dressed-up white loaf. Terms like wheat flour or brown flour can be misleading because they often refer to refined products with minimal whole grain content. This is food marketing at its most cynical, selling the image of health while delivering the nutritional profile of a budget white loaf. You pay more because it looks better. Meanwhile, your body receives the same refined carbohydrates, the same blood sugar spikes, and the same lack of real fibre. When the colour is a lie, what else is the label hiding? The next loaf exposes the lie with one simple test most people never think to apply. If you're learning something new here, hit subscribe and keep these eye-opening breakdowns coming. Number 7. Long shelf life packaged bread. There is a simple rule that industrial bread makers never want you to learn. Real bread goes stale. If a loaf sits on your counter for a week and still feels soft, something unnatural is keeping it alive. Traditional bread made with flour, water, salt and yeast begins to harden within a day or two. The starches crystallize. The crust loses its crunch. The crumb dries out. This is not a flaw. It is proof of life. Real food changes because it was never designed to last forever. Our ancestors understood this. Modern manufacturers see it as a problem to be solved, a flaw to be engineered away, rather than accepted. But supermarket bread plays by different rules. Preservatives like calcium propionate are added specifically to inhibit mold and extend shelf life far beyond what nature intended. Emulsifiers keep the texture artificially soft even as days pass. Humectants trap moisture inside the loaf so it never feels stale, even when it should. The bread becomes frozen in time, unchanging, unnatural. It exists in a strange limbo between fresh and spoiled. The result is a product that defies basic food logic. A loaf that can survive in plastic packaging for 7, 10, even 14 days, while still feeling fresh to the touch. And this is considered normal. Consumers have been conditioned to expect bread that never changes. But that expectation was manufactured, not inherited. Ask yourself a simple question. If bacteria and mold refuse to eat this bread, what does that say about its value as food for you? When even microbes reject it, you are not holding nourishment. You are holding a preservation experiment. And the next loaf shows the shortcut that made all of this possible. Number 6. Bread made with dough conditioners. For hundreds of years, bread required patience. Dough was mixed, kneaded, and left to rise slowly. That long fermentation built flavour, developed gluten naturally, and created the texture people once recognised as real bread. But patience does not scale. And when industrial bakeries needed to produce millions of loaves per day, they found a shortcut: dough conditioners. These chemical additives do in minutes what traditional fermentation does in hours. Ascorbic acid, also known as E300, strengthens gluten quickly, so the dough can hold more gas and rise faster. Emulsifiers like diacetyl tartaric acid, esters of mono and diglycerides, known as E4-San52E, improve dough handling and crumb softness. Enzymes, often undisclosed because they are classed as processing aids, modify proteins and starches to accelerate the entire process. The result is bread that looks right but was never made right. It is imitation bread produced at industrial speed. The Chorleywood bread process, used to make roughly 80% of all UK bread, relies heavily on these conditioners. Without them, the system would not work. The intense mechanical mixing would destroy the dough rather than develop it. The additives are not optional extras. They are structural requirements. They are the foundation the entire industrial bread system is built upon. What this means for you is simple. The bread you buy has been chemically manipulated to skip the natural steps that give traditional bread its nutrition and digestibility. Slow fermentation breaks down certain compounds that can cause bloating and discomfort. Rushed bread does not get that benefit. You are eating a product that looks like bread, tastes like bread, but was never given the time to become bread properly. And the next loaf hides an ingredient most people assume bread should never contain. 5. High sugar sandwich loaves. When you bite into a sandwich loaf and it tastes just slightly sweeter than you expect, that is not an accident. That is added sugar doing exactly what it was designed to do. Make cheap bread taste better than it should. Manufacturers add sugar to bread for several reasons. It feeds the yeast and speeds up rising. It improves browning, giving the crust that golden colour consumers associate with freshness. And crucially, it makes the bread more palatable, masking the flat taste of refined flour and rapid processing. Some supermarket loaves contain as much as 3 grams of sugar per 2 slices. That may not sound like much until you realise you are eating dessert levels of sweetness in what should be a neutral staple. Over a week of sandwiches, the sugar adds up fast. By the end of the month, you have consumed a small mountain of hidden sweetness. The Irish Supreme Court delivered a stark ruling on this issue when they declared that Subway's bread contained so much sugar it could not legally be classified as bread under tax law. Their threshold was 2% sugar in relation to flour weight. Subway's recipe exceeded 5 times that limit. While this case applied to a specific chain, it exposed a wider truth. Modern bread is often far sweeter than regulations assume bread should be. The ruling made international headlines and forced consumers to question what they were really eating. This added sugar contributes to the cycle of blood sugar spikes and crashes that leave people feeling hungry again soon after eating. It trains your palate to expect sweetness in everything, even foods that should be plain. You are not buying bread. You are buying a mildly sweet, refined carbohydrate product dressed up as a staple. And sugar is not the only cheap ingredient being slipped into your loaf. The next entry reveals what is replacing traditional fats and why it matters. Number 4. Bread with vegetable oils. Instead of butter, bread once required very little fat, a touch of butter or lard, maybe nothing at all. Just flour, water, salt and yeast. But modern industrial loaves have quietly swapped those simple fats for something cheaper. Vegetable oils, rapeseed oil, palm oil, soybean oil. These are now standard ingredients in mass-produced bread. They cost less than butter, extend shelf life, and keep the crumbs soft in ways traditional fats never needed to. For manufacturers, the swap is pure economics. For you, it is a nutritional downgrade hidden behind familiar packaging. What looks like an innocent ingredient is actually a cost-cutting measure dressed up as a recipe, and you are the one absorbing the consequences every time you eat a slice. Palm oil, in particular, has faced intense criticism. Beyond the health debate, its production drives deforestation, habitat destruction, and carbon emissions on a massive scale. Orangutan populations have been devastated. Rainforests have been leveled. When you see palm oil listed on your loaf, you are looking at an ingredient chosen for profit margins and supply chain convenience, not for your well-being or the planet. But here is the deeper concern. These industrial oils were never part of traditional bread making. For centuries, bread needed no oil at all, or at most a small amount of animal fat for enriched loaves. The widespread inclusion of vegetable oils is a modern invention driven entirely by cost-cutting. And because these oils are so cheap, manufacturers use them liberally, not to improve your food, but to improve their profit margins, while maintaining that soft, squeezable texture consumers have been conditioned to expect. You are not eating bread the way it was meant to be made. You are eating an oil delivery system in loaf form, and the next loaf proves that health claims can be just as misleading as cheap prices. Number 3. Low-fiber healthy bread. The packaging's covered in promises, high in goodness, made with grains. A better choice for your family. But when you flip the bag over and check the actual numbers, the reality tells a very different story. Many loaves marketed as healthy options deliver shockingly low amounts of fibre per slice. Some contain as little as 1 gram per serving. The NHS recommends 30 grams of fibre per day for adults. At that rate, you would need to eat 30 slices just to meet your daily target from bread alone. That is not a health food. That is marketing dressed up as nutrition. And most people never do the maths. They trust the label and assume the work has been done for them. The trick lies in the wording. Terms like contains whole grains or source of fibre sound impressive but have low legal thresholds. A product can claim to be a source of fibre with as little as 3 grams per 100 grams. That allows heavily refined loaves to wear healthy labels while offering minimal benefit. The regulations protect the manufacturers, not the consumers. Real wholemeal bread made with 100% whole grain flour delivers significantly more fibre per slice. It also provides more vitamins, more minerals, and a slower release of energy. But that bread is more expensive to produce and has a shorter shelf life. So manufacturers create hybrid products that lean on refined flour, add a scattering of grains or seeds, and market the result as if it were the real thing. You think you are making a better choice. You are paying a premium for that belief. And the loaf in your hand is barely better than the budget white bread you were trying to avoid. And the next loaf reveals the simplest way to spot fake bread, once you know where to look. Number 2. Bread with long ingredient lists. Real bread needs 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, yeast. That is it. For thousands of years, those 4 components were enough to feed entire civilizations. But pick up a loaf from any major supermarket today and count the ingredients. You will often find 15, 20, sometimes more. Emulsifiers, preservatives, flour treatment agents, dough conditioners, vegetable oils, sugars, humectants, enzymes, stabilizers. Each one added not for your benefit but to solve a manufacturing problem, to speed up production, to extend shelf life, to cut costs, to create a texture that nature never intended bread to have. Every single addition moves the product further from food and closer to a factory creation. And none of these additions were requested by consumers. The longer the ingredient list, the further the product has drifted from real food. Every addition is a compromise. Every E number is a chemical intervention. Every unfamiliar term is another step away from the simple loaf your grandparents would have recognized. If you cannot pronounce half the ingredients, that alone should give you pause. And here is the hidden layer. Some ingredients do not even appear on the label. Enzymes used during production are often classified as processing aids rather than ingredients, which means they can be legally omitted from the packaging. You do not know they are there, you cannot make an informed choice. The system is designed to keep you in the dark. This is bread in name only. A product so heavily engineered that calling it bread feels like a legal technicality rather than an accurate description. When the list is that long, you are not buying bread. You are buying industrial manufacturing shaped into a loaf. And the final entry on our list brings everything together. The single worst offender in almost every British household. Number 1. Ultra-processed white bread. This is it. The loaf that sits in more kitchens, school lunchboxes, and morning routines than any other. The soft, white, plastic-wrapped icon of modern convenience. And it is one of the most heavily processed foods you can buy. Ultra-processed white bread is not made the way bread was meant to be made. It is manufactured, assembled from refined flour stripped of nutrients, bulked with emulsifiers, stabilizers, and dough conditioners, preserved with chemicals that stop mold from forming for weeks, softened with enzymes and oils that create a texture no traditional baker would recognize. Every step designed for efficiency, not for health. Every shortcut taken to maximize output and minimize cost. Under the Nova food classification system used by researchers worldwide, this bread falls into Group 4, ultra-processed food products. That places it alongside sweets, soft drinks, and packaged snacks, not alongside the bread your great-grandparents ate. The same classification system that warns against excessive consumption of junk food now includes the bread most British families eat every single day. Studies have linked high consumption of ultra-processed foods to increased risks of obesity, heart disease, and metabolic dysfunction. And while no single slice of bread will harm you, the cumulative effect of eating this product day after day, year after year, adds up. The damage is slow and silent, but it is real. This is what the British food system has quietly accepted as normal. A product that looks like bread, carries the name bread, but shares almost nothing with the bread humanity relied on for centuries. It is soft not because it is fresh, but because it has been engineered. It is cheap not because it is simple, but because quality has been stripped out at every stage. Real bread has 4 ingredients and goes stale within days. Ultra-processed white bread has a dozen or more ingredients and lasts for weeks. That difference tells you everything you need to know. When even the most basic food on your table has been turned into a manufactured product, it is time to rethink what you are really eating, and more importantly, what you are feeding the next generation.